Welcome to How VR Entertainment Will Finally Take Off, presented by Inception VR, with David Neyman, VP Content Development, Inception VR.
Thanks. I was not expecting that. They did not tell me that intro was happening. That is cool. Couple housekeeping things. They said if you want to move to the front, you're welcome to. If you're comfortable, feel free to stay there. They also said that somebody had a talk like this a couple years ago, and there were people in tears. So if you feel the need to get emotional, let it out. So as the announcer from Space mentioned, my name is David Neyman. I'm VP Content Development at Inception VR. So before we get into the talk, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about who Inception is and what we do. Well, this is the talk. So Inception VR is a 360 VR content destination creating premium original content. We develop content internally. We work with the creative ecosystem, producers, developers, and we do some third-party distribution as well. We believe in more mobile-optimized VR content as well as casual VR content. So we create experiences in music, travel, food, anything that's lifestyle driven, and we work with leading publishers who have large audiences who create video content every single day on all the other platforms and help them come into the world of VR. And we take that content and we combine it with our proprietary interactive VR technology. So we'll dive into a little bit more of that in a bit, but a couple of things to note is we developed a set of authoring tools that allows creators to take their 360 linear content and allow for them to add interactivity to it, as well as our most recent kind of innovation, which launched last week with the Google Daydream European launch, interactive streaming with spatial audio. And we combine all of that on our own app, Inception VR, that's available on all of the platforms, Oculus Gear, iOS, Android, Vive, Daydream, and coming in the next few weeks, PlayStation VR. Some of the titles that we've worked on are up there. It's a combination, again, of original VR content we're producing internally, as well as some of our partnerships. So you'll recognize, I think, some of the brands up there, whether it's Playboy, Safe for Work, I promise. We want to be featured on the App Store. Boiler Room and Time Out, and we've got a couple other partnerships that are premiering the next few weeks, one with Pitchfork and one with Uproxx. So before we get into the how of it all, I want to talk a little bit about the why. And there's two big reasons why we feel like today, the time is really right for this, revolution and explosion of VR. And the first reason is threshold. Our threshold for experiences has evolved over the years. If you look at the top right image, you see a couple older gentlemen, it's a stock photo, no one I'm related to, playing backgammon. And 60 years ago, that was a form of entertainment. That was a form of community. That was a form of being able to experience something. And that's changed dramatically over the years to what you see in the lower left-hand image, which I call the Pokemon Go epidemic of 2016, of people wanting to take experiences to the next level. It's no longer just playing a game. It's about getting out in the world and being able to experience it in a new way. Our tendency to be surprised, to be shocked, to create an experience that takes us to a completely different level has only risen as culture and technology has evolved. And obviously, most of us, I think, are familiar with the Sleep No More example of, what could be a traditional theater experience of coming in and sitting in seats. They took it to the next level by actually placing you in the experience. So I think all of these components has kind of been a perfect kind of situation that allows us to now be ready for an experience of VR, which really allows us to immerse ourselves in an experience. The second, again, Safe for Work, I promise you there's nothing coming on that's not, I wouldn't play in front of my mom, is excitement. 60 years ago, not to throw salt 60 years ago, but this was exciting. This was revolutionary. This was, in some ways, controversial. The way that we see these things now today and our excitement levels for content has changed dramatically. So when we look at VR content at Inception VR, we think about threshold, we think about excitement, we think about how to take some of the experiences that might feel conventional or might feel, conservative, and how do we add kind of a VR component to it. So the first example I want to show you today is our Dali piece that we created in partnership with the Dali Museum in Barcelona, where we took a look at threshold and excitement and even a classical representation of one of his most famous works. How do we create an experience in VR that is better or more unique? So this is the first example. Cool. So again, combining those two elements of threshold and excitement, there is that physical experience of being able to go to the museum in Barcelona and standing in front of this famous painting. It's Aleta Autumn, and being able to see it the way that the artist intended for you to see it. And now with what VR provides, there's a level of experience that what if you can't get to that museum? What if you want to be able to not just see the painting but explore the painting? So the ability to not just see it but explore it in a way that even the artist, even Dali, would not expect for you to be able to do is something that is questions that we keep asking. With the painting, you obviously just see the front of her. Working in VR, you're actually obviously creating 360 representations of the entire image. So we worked with art historians, we worked closely with the museum to get every part of that right, including her backside, which obviously is not something that you can see when you're in the room. So bonfires, not fireworks. I think this is a fancy way of saying, VR today is obviously, we're in the early days. We've heard that a lot over the last 2 days. We hear it for the ones who work in VR in the room. We hear it every single day. It's the wild, wild west. We're still trying to figure this all out. And today, because of that, a lot of the experiences that you see are what we consider blockbusters. They're super expensive. They take months and months of development. Which is what you need. VR is in its infancy. You need those type of moments, those blockbusters, those roller coasters, those fireworks to get people excited about what VR can do. The flip side to that is that it's not necessarily scalable. It's not something that is also sustainable. We need fireworks, but we also need bonfires. We need the meat and potatoes. We need to create programming that is scalable, is efficient, and at Inception, we really think about it in a way of how do you create serialized programming. In a way, we're teaching a completely new behavior. The audiences still have to get used to this idea of, especially with true VR, going in, finding the content, putting on the headset, seeking it out. All this stuff still needs to improve. And the big fireworks, the big blockbusters are great because they're getting people excited about what the medium can do. But there's also the business side of things, and there's also the side of things where you really need to train them to keep coming back every day, not just every week or every few weeks. So we at Inception, again, think about things from more of a serialized perspective, from more of a format perspective. How can we create multiple episodes with not just our original content, but also with our partners as well? So an example of that is this format that we created called This Is Where It Starts, we've done a number of episodes so far. This one is with a band in London called Mystery Jets. We're in development now on an improved version of this that will be released in June with an A-list musician. But the format stays the same regardless who you're working with. It's a place that the artists choose that is compelling to them, that is meaningful for them. Most of these artists have chosen the recording studio, and it's an opportunity for them to tell the story of them through through the lens of VR. So each experience starts with the musician giving you a tour of the place, and there's subtle interactive moments where there's a TV or a record player or some tickets that the viewer can interact with, can gaze, or with Daydream and gear can click on, and that will unlock a different experience. So this is a quick clip. Now let's talk a little bit about the. Let's talk a little bit about the about things that will help ignite this transition, this adoption. First thing is Transmedia. Transmedia is not new. It's been around forever. Various use cases. We see it every single day. But it's a really important tool for VR today. It's something that the studios have been one of the early adopters of. You see it with things like Mr. Robot, Kong VR, which just came out, and HTC's recent announcement of Ready Player One, which I'm personally very excited about. When you talk about VR, and again, going back to consumer adoption, the more that we can tap into recognizable IP, books, movies, TV shows, the way that we think about it at Inception, publishers who are creating content every day in other mediums, I think the more excitement that you can build around VR content, the more recognizable it is, and the more, I think, willing that consumers will be to actively seek out these experiences, whether they're hopefully watching it in the way that we intend them to watch it, which is in the VR headset on the app, or even kind of the reach and engagement that even a 360 video can provide on Facebook or YouTube and other social platforms. So there's two examples I kind of wanted to talk to you today. The first one, we have a global partnership with Time Out Magazine, which if you live in New York or London or Miami or Chicago or Tel Aviv, it's it's a best of the city, whether it's where to eat, where to sleep, what to check out. And their content is very traditional. It's mostly driven by editorial, it's mostly driven by images. They do some video, but it's not necessarily a natural extension of their brand. So we partnered with them because they wanted a way to bring these experiences of not just reading about something, but what it's like to actually be there. So the first of these experiences was shot in London for the West End production of Wicked, where we took cameras behind the scenes of what it was like to get ready for the play.
And done.
Almost.
Cool. Thanks. The second example is actually our first experience that's releasing with, I know I've been talking about them a lot, Playboy. Again, safe for work, it's totally shareable, friendly for all ages. But they're a brand that's obviously a global legacy brand. From the 50s all the way through today, and obviously they create content in many shapes and sizes and forms. This was an opportunity for them to create an experience that actually takes their brand to a different level. So whether it's the quality of their content or their photo shoots, or they've now branched out into food and travel and lifestyle. The opportunity for fans of the brand all over the world to not just read it or see it, but actually be a part of it was something that not only they're really excited about, but actually putting a greater focus in. So the first experience that we've produced together is actually taking you inside the mansion, which gives you people all over the world the ability to be somewhere they normally wouldn't. And this actually launches on Tuesday, and this is a little clip.
This is the game room. This is actually my favorite part of the house. It's where I come and we'll host friends and we all hang out and drink and play games. Here's my dad's popcorn blanket. This keeps him nice and warm during those black and white movies. This is the van room. It's designed to actually look like the back of a 1970s van. There's actually a mattress underneath the floor, and you can imagine why there's mirrors on the ceiling. I'll let your mind wander for a minute on that one.
Cool. And then the biggest igniter, I think, for all of VR, the same way that it's been said for every medium, whether it's TV or digital or even podcasts today, is brands. Especially for a company like Inception, we need brands to be able to push the medium forward. Right now, obviously, VR has an eyeball issue. There's not enough people who are consuming it. That's changing quickly. And I think that's definitely part of the concern for the majority of brands to dive in. They're not sure what the ROI is. They're not sure how to calculate engagement and what is success metrics. I heard a really interesting talk here yesterday by the gentleman who leads VR at OMD, which is a major agency and I think doing some of the best work in VR today, and for brands like Coca-Cola, and for Gatorade and Mountain Dew and others. And his message to brands was, and to his clients was, let the lead with the content. Let the content be what engages the consumer. Don't lead with the brand message. And I thought that was really interesting, especially coming from someone like him who works with brands every single day. And so as brands become more used to this new medium, as eyeballs continue to pick up, I think they're going to be part of the driver that really allows for VR content to get to the next level, and also to have a big enough library and a big enough kind of pool of content to allow consumers to go out and buy these headsets, because there will be more stuff for them to engage with. Companies like Lexus, I think, have been leading the way in being able to bring these experiences to the masses without necessarily having to kind of put their brand front and center. They put a sponsorship card, or they find a way to integrate the product or the messaging in a really native way. And I think that's really important today, because it's tough. It's hard enough to get people to go through all the steps to go and watch VR. If you make it feel like a commercial, if you make it feel like a very outwardly facing piece of branded content, you're already kind of taking something that has a barrier of entry this high and now going even higher. So that's a constant conversation we're having with brands. Is obviously you want the ones that want to play in the space are doing it because they want to be innovative and they want to be first, but they also want their messaging to come across. So in VR today, it's definitely a balance of the two. So I'll show two quick examples of how we've been working with brands. One is the first one is with Grey Goose, actually very much more of a branded content piece, not necessarily something that was subtle. This was an experience they threw in Tel Aviv and just wanted to capture more of a 360 version of what it's like to be there. And the second one, I'll play back to back given the time, is with another one with Time Out, where we partnered with Intercontinental Hotels, and we created a format called My TLV, which we're now doing for My London and My New York, which follows a number of influencers through various places and locations that are their favorite places to eat or drink or sleep, or kind of the secrets of the city. And we integrated the intercontinental message by not just putting the influencers in an intercontinental hotel and creating something that feels disconnected, but actually just creating a separate experience on top of it with the concierge from the hotel. So if you chose to have more of a branded experience, you could. Otherwise, you still had your traditional native content experience. So play both.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are here to launch a global platform called #FlyBeyondTel-Aviv, celebrating individuals who have defied expectations and achieved the extraordinary.
My name is Sotirios, and for the last 16 years I'm living in Israel. Originally I was born in Greece. I was raised up there. This is my favorite spot in the hotel. Look at the amazing view from this balcony. Tel Aviv in the north, Old Jaffa on the left, Mediterranean in front. Beautiful. Tel Aviv is the white city, as we call it, the city that never sleeps. It has surprises in any simple corner of it. I would like to invite you to come with me to discover together the areas around the hotel. Please, come with me.
I love how he says, "Please come with me." It's really inviting. We're kind of getting short on time, but obviously interactivity. Interactivity is super important when it comes to VR, but interactivity with a purpose. And we think about that all the time. We ask ourselves questions about how is it going to work? Why is it going to work? How is it going to make the content or the experience better? And for me, interactivity is about participation, and participation breeds connection. And the more that you can get your audience to connect with an experience, the better chance you have for them to continue to come back and kind of build that level of trust that the experience that you're creating is kind of worthy of their experience. So there's a lot of different ways, obviously, to include interactivity, especially when it comes to entertainment and cinematic experiences. I'll show two quick examples just because we're running out of time. One is a Kubrick exhibit that we shot with the Somerset House in London, where we wanted to figure out what's the best way to go from installation, art room to art room, without giving the viewer an element of choice. And the other one I'll show you is our recent collaboration with Boiler Room, which is one of the leading live stream purveyors of underground music. Live streamed to over 60 million people, and we just partnered with them to create an experience for the European launch of Daydream. And it's really the first case study for this technology that we developed that allows for interactive streaming with spatial audio. So you're in a Berlin nightclub, you're underground, you can experience it like you were there by going from room to room, from the dance floor to the DJ booth, from the art room to the chill out room, without having to download it and delete a bunch of other apps, using just your network's capability and device capability, but also without feeling any sort of lag or losing of the immersiveness. So play both of these.
The corridor just sets the tone for your entering into the world of Kubrick. The pattern on the carpet is very well known. It's very synonymous with his work.
Saturday. Let's go. This is Berlin, so this is normal. So how do we continue to go from this to this? Well, I think we're on our way. I think if you take a look at a lot of what we talked about today and how we think about VR, I think can't tell you exactly when this is going to happen. I can't give you a specific date, but I think the combination of audience appetite, what we look for out of our experiences, the technology, and everything that is not just happening in this room, but it's happening in that room over there, is going to be able to fuel the rise of how we experience entertainment and cinema in the future. Thank you.